I struggle with how to always open, but I'm going to say, who are you guys?
Yep.
So who are you guys?
We're a band called Futura. We play indie rock, and we live in Ottawa, Ontario.
And you are Peter.
My name is Peter.
Yeah, and I'm Clinton. I play bass.
You play guitar and sing.
I play guitar and sing. That's right.
All right, cool. So how did the band get started? Like the origin stories is that my understanding is that my gathering is that you're from Nova Scotia.
I'm actually from Thunder Bay,
Oh, okay.
Ontario.
So maybe the lyrics are misleading or something.
I definitely bring out Nova Scotia. Yeah.
Do you?
Yeah, in the song, oh shoot, it's like they're really vibey. So anyway,
Yeah.
So Clinton and I, I'm from Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
Clinton went to school in Thunder Bay. That's where we met. We started a band when we were in Thunder Bay, kind of a proto Futura Free. It wasn't the band yet.
Yeah.
But that's sort of where we like really became really great friends and started making music and like really aligned with the kind of music that we made. And then anyway, after graduation, we kind of, stayed friends, but went our separate ways. And I wound up in Kingston, where I posted a Kijiji ad and met some really amazing people, amazing musicians, by just posting a Kijiji ad that said, hey, I'm a 20-something guitarist. I can record my own stuff, and I like indie rock if anyone wants to meet up. And that's actually how I was able to meet the other members of the band.
Were they in Kingston too?
Yes.
Oh,
so
wow. Okay.
we got our footing as a Kingston band, and we did like quite a few years, and we did the whole pandemic when we were living in Kingston. And following that, we all sort of migrated to Ottawa, where Clinton moved there not long after. And from there, I asked him, hey, well, now that we're back in the same city, would you like to join the band?
What was there a reason why you were both migrating to Ottawa at the same time, kind of?
So me, like Peter mentioned, like we moved to different cities. I started a solo project called Headglow, solo recording project and stuff while I was living in Windsor. And then my decision making was basically I moved to Windsor for work, and that sucked.
Yeah.
So I wanted to move somewhere where my friends were going to be.
Yeah.
And Peter and his wife were already planning to move to Ottawa. I had some other friends in Ottawa. I'm like, I'm just going to move to a place where I have the highest density of friends.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
that's what drove me back to Ottawa.
Is there something about Ottawa that's more appealing than like Toronto? Like
Yeah, everything about Ottawa is more appealing, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's I don't think a single thing about Toronto that makes me want to live there.
We're both from are from pretty small towns growing up and everything like that. And moving to Kingston. So being from Thunder Bay, I moved to Kingston, which is sort of roughly the same size as Thunder Bay, but like there's a lot going on. There's actually a really excellent music scene. There's a lot of cool bars and breweries and stuff. So that was the first sort of stepping out from my little hometown into like still a pretty small city, but like a lot's going on. And then just from, taking trips to Ottawa and everything, Ottawa actually felt like a really fantastic kind of next step. It is a larger city, but it's not like the huge metropolis of Toronto. Like it still felt very, very comfortable for like my little from a small town little guy. So,
but like you said that you mentioned this happened during the pandemic. Like, was the pandemic like a catalyst to get you to come to Ottawa?
A little bit.
Yeah.
It definitely, I'm sure it had an impact on it. I think part of it was too. So my now wife, she was my girlfriend at the time, and
Congratulations.
Thank you. And I think a big part of it was that when we left Thunder Bay, I wanted to get out of my hometown. I love Thunder Bay, but I said, okay, I'd like to see maybe a different part of the province even.
Yeah.
And she's from Kingston, so when we were in Kingston, we said, this is great. We're having a wonderful time. And we've got some great friends here. But, before we like really, really settled down, I think it was, let's go on another adventure. Let's try out Ottawa. What the heck? It's kind of a nice step up from Kingston. So, yeah.
Oh, okay, cool. And then the band named Futura Free, is that related to the Frank Ocean song by any chance?
That's exactly what it is.
Oh, okay, all right. That was sort of a coincidence or just...
No, that's exactly it. And then, of course, if you Google Futura Free, the first thing that you'll always run into is the Frank Ocean song.
Yeah, you just sort of shot your SEO.
Yeah. I think when I was thinking about first of all, that one Frank Ocean record that Futura Free is on, I think it's actually really fantastic. It's like a really vibey little... like the instrumentals are really cool and interesting, even for like non a non R&B fan or something.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think I like the word Futura. But there's a band in California called Futura.
It's also a font, I think, right?
That's exactly where. Yeah. So and it's a good font actually. So yeah. So anyway, that was kind of Futura free. It kind of it had kind of like that weird. Like I liked referencing the band with a like a kind of out of left field genre rather than just referencing a pop punk band or something like that, which I would also totally do. I love doing that. But
Clinton, you were you joined after the band had been sort of established, right?
Yeah. So we were in a band together called Soapboxer originally in university. We both graduated, went to different cities. And so all of the formation of Futura Free, Peter being on Kijiji, meeting all these people, I wasn't around for any of that. I moved back to Ottawa.
Yeah.
And then Peter was like, "Hey, you want to join the band?" I was like, "Yeah, sure." Luckily, like we said, we've been in bands together before. I've been a fan. I joined sort of as just a guy who was on their tour.
So what was the transition like from? I guess you had a different bass player,
So what happened was our Gabe Reeves, who was playing bass, he is a synth guy and into a lot of sort of making that kind of music. So we moved him to synth. So it was actually a nice little pivot where Clinton was able to step in on bass and Gabe moved to synth. So that was cool.
Was there a transition of how the original guy played bass and how you played bass, or was there discussion about that or anything of that nature?
It wasn't too hard. Luckily, the sort of music we make has a very driving bass, by design, by the way the songs are written.
Yeah.
And so by the song necessitates that Gabe and I play the bass fairly similarly. But no, as far as I know, Gabe was actually pretty stoked for me to come in on bass because he would rather play synth or guitar or other instruments. He was
okay.
So he was actually great. This gives me some breathing room and allowed me to go on bass. And bass is sort of my go-to instrument. It's where I feel the most at home. And I've been making music with Peter, and we've been close friends for years and years and years. So I sort of knew what he was going to expect of me, what the band sort of was going to be.
But were you playing the same bass lines for the older songs, or were you adapting them, changing them?
Pretty close to the same. Yeah. Every once in a while, if a bass line is too just the root note on eighth notes for an entire song,
I
through sheer boredom, I have to do something with it.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And so I end up adding a little bit of runs and fills. And I try and keep it tasteful, but my fingers need to do something more than just rock on a single note for an entire song.
Okay.
So I try and keep at least the spirit, if not the exact bass line, exactly the same. And usually, it's just quick runs or fills between stuff, but for the most part, the bass lines did stay the same from
cool.
old basses to new.
How does the songwriting process, the factory of songwriting, work?
That's a question for you more than me.
It's a pretty traditional approach of whoever you come up with a song. I do a lot of the songwriting for the band. So your classic. You get some chords together. You get some lyrics together that may change later. You start forming these ideas. I think I got really, when this band started, that's when I got really heavy into self-demoing. I never really used demos before. It would just be okay, let's get the song and then record the real thing. For this, I definitely would just take some quick scratch guitar and some just quick programmed drums and then create these songs to sort of map them out and kind of look at them from a bird's eye view. And then from there, I put them up on a Google Drive. And then the guys take a look at them and kind of make it their own with different sort of elements and stuff like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's you're kind of creating the skeleton, and then is there ever situations where I guess the structure would change when it's kind of brought to the band, or would it be
not as much as I think. I think once everyone once we all sort of, especially when we start jamming it, as soon as you start kind of getting it in your head, it's kind of this works the way I think as. I've got this bad habit of we're in the middle of making a record as sort of very late down the line of starting to apply structural changes in post production basically.
Yeah.
Which is pretty wacky and probably not a very good idea. But yeah, I think the song structures stay pretty consistent when we were just jamming them out, because the more you jam them, the more familiar you get with them. And
once they're in your head, they're sort of hard to get out of your head.
Yeah,
the way that you're used to them, so it's hard to see the structure changing unless it's a really strong idea. And things like that where we like maybe change it to like a quieter section or like loop a thing. Those happen pretty early or like you say pretty late.
Yeah.
So it's either like Peter shows the thing, like one of us is like, ooh, maybe this would like structure change.
Yeah.
But then after that, when we're still practicing with the scratch tracks with the demos, they pretty much stay the same.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we just run them, and then I like that now too, because the more I run a song is like I'm able to try things out.
Yeah.
So when I write my bass lines, like I need to play the song like 15 times before I've decided where I want to like add flourish or different things.
Yeah.
And so that's better rather than the like, hey, here's the song, learn it today, record it this weekend sort of thing. They're going to be way simpler if you do it that way. So I like having a little bit of room for the song to grow and for everyone to learn how they play it and how it sounds together.
For the last album that you recorded, it's called Reducer. Is that
Reducer? Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, I wasn't sure if I had my notes right. I was going to say Reducer. How was it recorded? Like, did you do it yourselves, or did you have a producer, or what was the?
Totally ourselves. Actually, the one thing I really like to talk about the band is that we pretty much record everything in-house, I call it.
Okay.
So yeah, totally done by me. Actually, Reducer was kind of done in that that was a pandemic record. So that was a lot of isolation. So that was kind of pieced together a lot on a laptop after the fact. So, you get the parts all together and stuff. But yeah, we just totally did it ourselves. Like our software and plugins did a lot of the heavy lifting with that. Like we didn't have like a nice big grand room to record it or whatever. But
it sounds really nice though. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, it was definitely a fun thing to do. But yeah, that had a really long gestation period, because I remember doing the vocals in like 2019, and then the pandemic happened, and then the record didn't get released till two years later, which is a 2-year turnaround time. I think is a little bit long for me. So
yeah.
Yeah.
How do I say it? I guess like there's like guitars and like synths in it, and it's like they kind of like sometimes sort of are almost like sort of, I don't want to say melding together, but like sometimes it's sort of hard to tell when it's a guitar or it's a synth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like how were you able to achieve that effect, I guess? Is that on purpose, or is that just my hearing of it?
That's totally on purpose. I think there is the other thing is that one of the reasons that I sing praises of learning to record as much at home is because there's effectively like no budget and often no deadline, which sometimes no deadline can be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But when you have no budget, you can really do experiments and play with different like textures and stuff like that. And Reducer at the time was the craziest I ever got with production, just really stacking a lot of guitars and a lot of synths because I was just antsy and wanted to see how it sounded. So that's definitely intentional. I've really fallen in love with like overproducing, I think, and like throwing everything at the wall and only removing stuff when it's really starting to like impact the quality, I think. So yeah.
What are you gonna say?
I was gonna say plus at that time I recall you we Peter and I had a whole bunch of discussions about like what the rhythm guitar was going to sound like on Reducer and whether there was going to be rhythm guitar, what to do with it, what tone were you going to have on the guitar, sort of the early stages. And you sort of like you were falling out of love with guitar music at the time. I
forgot about all this.
Falling more in love with dream pop and soundscapes and
like ambient electronic. I was really into that.
And so I recall having these conversations with Peter and like sort of seeing like where the album was going to go. I wasn't even in the band at the time, but knowing that it was going to go less like driving guitar, less like you can hear like like a Les Paul through a Marshall stack. There was going to be none of that. It would be more washed out, more pads and more sound, like you say, like ambient soundscape.
Yeah,
sound design.
Because sometimes I'm wondering when I'm listening to it if there actually are guitars playing or not, and so I'm wondering, are those like pedals that are kind of like did sort of disguising them as more of like a synth sound, or is that or like effects, or not necessarily pedals, but you know what I mean, like.
Yeah, like definitely. So there is just like a quick bird's eye view. Like there is rhythm guitar. There is like your classic power chord stuff, but it gets buried pretty deep, especially by like the final mix when there is so much stuff layered on top. I'm like, this really, like I don't need this sort of filling up the mid range. So yeah, it is a lot of different like stacking layers. So there is actually like there is quite a bit of guitar in there. I'm not actually a very good synth player. Like I
Okay.
do a lot of, a lot of it's like MIDI, like I like would do stuff like that. So I'm not like a super technical person on the keyboard or whatever. But yeah, I just sort of where it felt I would get like some guitar in there and then say, oh well, like, they could sound a little more 80s and shiny. So then that's where the synth starts coming in. So yeah.
Yeah, so there's like I guess like I don't even know if it's a paradox, but it sounds like both from the future and from the 80s all at the same time. Does that make
Oh,
sense?
Yeah.
That is wow, very well said. That's
Retro futuristic.
yeah.
I guess maybe it's like what the 80s imagined the future would sound like, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
Wow, that's
That's high praise.
that's a great elevator pitch. Actually, that's yeah. So yeah.
Was there influences from the future or the 80s?
There is. I do like to talk. So I think what I've been thinking about now, like, oh, like how do you describe your band? And like I think my quickest like way to say it is like it's kind of like Jimmy Eat World and The Cure together or something. I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
And like shoegaze, but I think there is definitely something about drawing on, like the 80s, yeah, The Cure, a little bit of the Smiths, but then a lot of modern pop and hip hop production, like
Yeah.
a lot of samples, a lot of like weird little sounds that don't really need to be there, but just to add a little bit of flavor and texture to the sound.
I guess since you bring that up, I should just I'll just ask it right now because I'll get to that eventually. But where was it? In the song "Landing Area," the lyrics are not asking for answers, but for, and then it glitches out.
Yeah.
What's the story behind? I assume the answer. I assume it was going to say questions because I think there was like a rhyming scheme that was going to suggest that, but it didn't actually say it.
You're close.
Okay. Oh no. Never mind. Okay.
I think this is far enough in the rear view. So Reducer is a very much an album about being like pretty badly depressed. There's
the song does start with still depressed. Is the opening lyric.
Yeah.
In the area.
So I think when I was writing the lyrics, I think the actual thing is that I would say like a content warning for what I'm about to say, but like
Content warning.
the initial lyric was like asking not for answers but for methods in reference to like method. And I thought even like in the rear view of like recording that, I'm like that's really kind of not the kind of vibe that I'm trying to like.
Oh man, I totally got that wrong.
Yeah, no worries. And then and then in part of my like just trying to chop up everything and just do everything crazy. So I said, oh, like I could just do like this really cheeky, like awful, noise stab there instead, and it actually worked out. It fit the vibe of the song. So
very very like Death Grips or Daughters.
yes, totally, yeah. So yeah.
I was really curious and like what?
Yeah.
It was like
I'm glad you caught that because yeah, it's just little Easter eggs like that are really fun to like just scatter throughout the production. So yeah,
I guess from like some questions about songwriting. When you write a song, do you start with lyrics, vocals, vocal melody, guitar? Is there a certain way to start it, or does it change?
Usually, and I've become more cognizant of this. Each record, I think, maybe is a little different. I forget, but for the most like recent record that we're working on right now, I think, and how I've done this for a while is. I start compiling like a Google Drive folder or like a notes app on my phone of just different lyrics and turns of phrase and stuff like that.
So are you just like literally just typing up what the words are?
A little bit, or I'll like think of like things to like sort of talk about and like not necessarily like what are going to be the final lyrics, but sort of the words come first pretty much always.
Okay.
And then from there. Yeah, honestly, music comes like chords come last actually because I will take the lyrics, take some words, and then I like will take 4 lines and be like, okay, this could maybe become a chorus. This is like a pretty snappy delivery or whatever. This rhymes well, and then from there I would just start playing some chords underneath, like picking out your classic major chords and stuff like that. So then from there it becomes the chorus usually starts because I probably have too much of a reliance on making things poppy and catchy. So I always say, okay, I want to start with like something that is kind of like a bop, like for like the 4 chords in the chorus, and so then usually I have some lyrics and then I build. But
are you taking a priority over like the words or the melody? I guess when we talk about like making like a bop for it, right?
That's a really good question. How would that work? So I guess what would probably happen is that like I would have like the rhythm of the lyrics in my head. How does this rhyme? And then I probably get like kind of a melody, and then start playing some chords underneath it, and then adjust the melody as needed.
Okay.
So
Over
sort of
top.
a flow, like how
The flow starts of like, okay, how do these rhyme together? And then usually I will like probably like conjure some like notes, like, just your very major melodies or whatever, and then get some chords to fit underneath that. And then I can sort of say, okay, well, what if I went to like a minor chord here instead? How does that change the feel of the song? How does it change the feel of the melody?
But what if you like you had like a really great lyric, but it just wasn't like fitting like melodically? Would you abandon the lyric, or would you make the melody? Would you force the melody into the spot? It's kind of a strange question.
I would probably. That's a great question.
Okay.
I think I would probably. I'm trying to think. I'm sure I've run into that. I think I would probably try and retrofit or play around with the syllable placements.
Yeah,
Or
okay,
bring in like a synonym that like has 2 syllables. So I would try and like play around with it enough to like sort of maybe the lyric does have to get changed. Maybe I have to change one word to another or something like that. But I think if I want to maintain whatever I'm trying to say in the chorus, I think I would try and like do some management to try to get that to fit into this chorus. Or
Yeah. Okay. So it's a kind of like a bit of both. It's like you're gonna try to make it fit, but if it's not fitting, you're gonna try to rework the melody a bit. Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Have you ever had writer's block?
Yes. So yeah, not really bad writer's block, not the kind that like makes you go
that
crazy.
I have.
Did you have writer's block?
actually.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think you're in a
get
bad bout right now.
Really bad. Yeah, on like my solo project stuff, I've been like wanting to work on a record, but just like I haven't written a single thing for it in like 2 years.
2 years. Oh
Yeah,
man.
I've just been working on other stuff and still trying to keep music in the mind, but like I keep not wanting not to force myself into a space where I'm doing something and hating it and doing it just because I'm making myself do it.
Yeah.
But I find sometimes I get in that headspace of like I don't know what to say, and like I write songs very similarly, so I start with what I want to say with the song and then write the song sort of from there. So it becomes tough when I feel like I don't really have anything to say. Like, why am I writing a song if I've got nothing to say? And then when I think of something to say, I'll come across a song that maybe says it better, and then I get imposter syndrome, and then I'm sure I have to work through that. And so I get writer's block particularly bad, and I know it's all in your head, but it's.
But you're literally in it right now.
Oh yeah. It's,
is it bothering you? Is it making you anxious in general?
It does, yeah, for sure. I feel a little bit better knowing that like I'm still getting out playing music. I'm being able to play in Futura free where I can just show up, play the bass. I don't need to be creative or need to create something. I can still do music just as sort of a passenger on like these songs that Peter's writing.
Yeah.
And that also makes the question, like I could write some stuff for Futura free probably, but I've never found that Peter has any problem like filling a track list with songs. Like he seems to have a backlog of songs that he could pull from if say we needed another song.
Yeah. Okay.
And he also he's like I would be glad to have. He's always said to me he would be glad to have songs that I wrote if I wanted to bring them forward. So if I wrote a song and like this really feels like a Futura song, I'm sure I could pass it over. But if I'm writing this song, I sort of want it to be for my solo project, and I just haven't been writing songs.
Oh man.
So yeah, and like I know I got to get back to it, but I also I just moved to Ottawa. I've been gigging a lot. I just moved in with my girlfriend. I've been sort of I've not been really grounded in where I am.
Yeah.
Which makes it hard to just sit down and write or sit down and focus on stuff like writing.
Maybe you can absorb the city and it'll inspire you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I might need once I really feel like I'm from Ottawa and I'm not just a stranger who's living here. Maybe I'll have songs to write about Ottawa or about the music scene or about what I see and the way people interact. But I still sort of feel not quite grounded yet.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. I was gonna ask was about. It's kind of like a bit of a strange question too. Is are you aware of your vocal range, Peter? Like, do you know how high and low you can sing?
Totally. I know what keys I can sing in. I know what keys don't. Yeah.
But did you have a favorite key?
For this album that's coming out, A is probably which basically I can't sing in B. Basically, the highest I could go is maybe A sharp. I think I have a lower range. I think you have a higher range than me.
Mm-hmm.
So back in the olden days, back in our university band, a lot of stuff would be in E, and I've pretty much sometimes D. And basically, since then, I have been trying to climb the scale. Basically,
You mean make it go lower or higher?
to go higher, basically.
Oh, okay,
Because
okay.
I find, like, every album that I make, I always find that whatever song is in the highest key
Yeah.
always has a little bit more energy because I'm just singing just, like a little bit higher. Or maybe it's all in my head. I'm not sure.
Well, I
But
think you can hear when people are really grabbing for a note. And
Yeah.
I'm sure in all the the classic songs we think
Yeah.
of with like a really high, say like Whitney Houston note or whatever, I'm sure they plan that to be whatever highest
Yeah.
note that you can hit that really grabs
Yeah.
that tone, right?
Yeah, whenever I'm like, because I don't sing. Well, I don't sing well. I should. I don't sing, but in bands that like you can see like the singer kind of has like a sweet spot, like really gets the voice kind of like a little bit gravelly,
Yeah.
but like
so,
not
you're
like
pushing a
Yeah,
little
exactly,
bit, right?
yeah.
It really grabs your ear and makes you
Yeah.
like, pay attention
Yeah,
to them.
totally. And
Yeah.
I have actually been really cognizant of that for this album. Like that, like it informs the way that because when you get out the guitar or whatever, I'm like, oh, like this could be in any key. I'm just writing some like 4-chord song or whatever. But I've been trying to be mindful of what songs and what notes do I hit in these choruses to like be high but not too high, and then I got to remember that I have to sing them live and like stuff like that. So I definitely do a little bit of micromanagement with keys and all the sort of theory stuff. So
is like capos involved and stuff.
capos are always involved.
Okay.
If I showed up to a gig without a capo, I just got to go home. Sorry, no gig. I need capo is a must have.
Well, were there songs that you have created that like bringing it to the band, like this is gonna be a really great song, and when you bring it, it just all this is it just kind of falls apart, and it's like, oh damn it, the song was like I thought it was gonna be a great song, and then it just kind of didn't work in the end.
The guys are all very nice and very they're very understanding. They're really good sports. There's definitely, I think at this stage, I know if something is going to be a bust before I bring it to people or bring it to the guys. But I'm sure in the past, like I've had like ideas, I've got all these grand ideas of, what we should do this part for the song. And I think maybe just with this most recent album, like a lot of these songs are just like really upbeat and poppy and like pretty straightforward, like structurally. So like, it's kind of, there's not much that can go wrong with it.
Yeah.
But I'm thinking back to like Soapbox or something like that. I'm sure we've had like experiments that just like flopped. Like,
Yeah,
so.
I feel like there were, or potentially like didn't flop for everyone, but like there's a couple, like I recall like a couple times where like the drummer didn't want to like play the song because there was so much not playing before the drums came in, and that would have created a really cool effect. But because a member of the band didn't want to do it, you have to sort of play to them. So
Yeah, I think definitely in the past there has been. I think usually by the time, like especially with this most recent record that we're making, these songs are pretty well like realized of like what's supposed to happen at point A and point B and point C.
Okay.
By the time that we all start looking at them together. But I'm sure there's.
I think also a big tool that helps in that fight is the creating demos yourself, being able to self-record, and being able to self-record to the level of having drums, bass, guitar, and vocals laid out for a song.
Like a very
that
basic
really
arrangement.
that can really tell you what it's going to be and what it isn't going to be because you have all the core elements.
Yeah,
and so you can. I find like when I work on my own stuff, I know whether it's going to be a flop or how much work I'm going to need to fix it just in that process. Yeah. So it never really reaches the rest of the band.
Okay.
Yeah, for sure.
To then fall apart when it gets there. Because you have sort of an idea. You have like an almost finished product of like a scratch track.
Yeah. So like Clinton and I, so you're singing as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So so like you'll immediately recognize it if you're writing the song and you're singing it, that it's gonna like if it's gonna fall apart, you'll know. I guess
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't know. So, sometimes you make a mistake. Sometimes a flop ends up on a final record, and then someone else hears it like, "Oh, I liked it, man." That's just part of music.
Yeah.
Do you both have pedal boards?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What kind of I'm just kind of curious. What kind of pedals are you fronting?
It's really easy on bass. I run a tuner because everyone has to run a tuner. Be in tune.
That's an important part of it.
And then I always run my bass straight into a compressor. I'm currently using the JHS Series 3 compressor. It's got a bright toggle switch and fairly medium settings on attack and threshold.
So the whole idea of like bass using compression is just like it's always just gonna be like a very solid like
Yeah,
Like,
it gets rid of like bass can get really thwappy on some of the high end stuff, which will cause like big spikes, which sometimes you want. But I find that like the running it through some compression evens everything out. So like whether you're playing fingerstyle or pick style, it sounds like you're playing it the same even with minor variations because you squashed it.
Yeah.
And also it helps it ring way longer, which really helps for big moments where like I'm ringing out like a massive low E and the band is doing like, fun textural stuff on top of it. That E will just go forever. If you're running it through compression, particularly on a loud stage where then like there's a little bit of feedback, which will just keep that E rolling. And then out of that compressor, I run into a Tech 21 Sans Amp bass driver DI pedal. It's Sans Amp, Sans Amp. It's supposed to be sort of, you can just run DI out of it and not run into an amp at all.
Oh, okay.
But it's a wonderful preamp with drive built in. And it's just got the perfect amount. Lots of times on bass, if you add drive, you lose that low end.
Yeah, exactly. That's actually was thinking as you were saying that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it cuts out a lot of the low frequencies. And so you'll find some people are like modding big muffs to have a blend knob in them where they blend the dry signal with the wet signal to get a mix of both. The Sans Amp has those both built in. All the drives work and keep a lot of the low end. The EQ is all built for the circuit that it's within. So if you're not getting enough, you can just turn the bass up and it just fixes everything.
Oh, okay.
So cool. It's a pretty expensive pedal, but it's the best.
Amazing.
It's the best
so
decision
good.
I've ever made, and it makes my bass sound wonderful.
Yeah.
So that's
it's always found with like distorted bass is that like the low end gets taken out and it's like it loses the oomph of the whole song.
Yeah, and especially if you're playing the same thing as the rhythm guitar, then it just becomes a wash where the bass kind of sounds like the rhythm guitar. And it doesn't sound like the bass there at all, and then it muddies up the low mids and that's my typical setup. Sometimes if I'm playing like stranger, weirder stuff, I also will use a micropog. Just for an octave down on bass will get you that real sort of glitchy, like 808 almost sounding bass notes, especially when you like play them along with the kick drum. It just gets a real blah.
Is it kind of like a bit commander a bit, or is it?
It's an octaver.
Okay.
Just like copies your signal, plays it an octave lower. You can also do octave higher, but the octave lower and playing up around like the stuff on the A string.
Yeah, that's cool.
Makes a real cool effect. But that's basically all I run on the bass. Is just that compression and a Sans Amp.
Okay, cool. And what do you got, Peter?
I want to point out that I hate my pedal board. I have an antagonistic relationship with it.
I feel the same way with my own, yes.
I have, first of all, so anyway, tuner, an overdrive. It's like an MXR overdrive that I just got on Kijiji. I don't know. Like I'm so, like there's this whole world of like dirt pedals and tone and everything like that. And I've really... as when I was younger and stuff like that, I think I really got into that and trying to there's this great pedal deal. I'm going to pick up this like new dirt pedal and like try it out. And now I've kind of got to the point where I'm like, I use it. I mean, I use this overdrive and that's for the heavy parts. And then I just kind of I think it sounds fine. I know I'm going to sound very over all these pedals as I go through them, but it goes from the overdrive. There's a chorus. There's a Boss chorus. That's about the one thing that I do love on this board. I think it's it was like a one from Japan from like the 80s or something like that. And that stays on the entire set pretty much always. We're a very chorusy guitar band. That helps with that like 80s sound. And then like into Boss delay and, a Keeley reverb or something like that. So it's a pretty basic setup, but my board is way too big for it. Like the actual physical board.
The board has more space for other pedals.
I think I had these ambitions of being like this big massive stacked board with all this stuff.
300
yeah, but I can't. I'm always I'm glued to the microphone because I'm always singing. So I don't know. I just don't have. It would be really nice to sort of get into that, and I think that was the idea when I bought this big board to be think of all the things I can do. But
ambient soundscapes.
Yeah.
Do you ever have the issue where you want to click off one pedal and click on the other one at the exact same time?
Yes.
And it's how do you do that?
Exactly. Yeah.
So you have to sort of play towards the end of a bar. You switch off one, and then you switch on the other one at the beginning of the next bar, kind of thing.
And then I miss half the time. I don't. Then I forget to hit it, and then I don't look down. I'm like, oh, my delay's been on this entire time. Well, that's cool. So yeah, I don't think I've ever been this over pedal boards before. But just especially when you're just gigging a lot and stuff like that, I'm like,
Yeah,
especially when you play small bars, like I kind of look out and I'm like, I don't think anyone's gonna know like whether I'm running a $10 distortion pedal or a $100 one.
The value equation really changes when you're like, when you just want to get to a gig. Like sometimes just like a cheap guitar and a gig bag and a small pedal board with the 4 pedals you need on it is so much nicer than, you know, lugging around like a massive pedal board, like 2 guitars because they have different tone, and then you end up playing like a small cracker box with bad sound anyway. And it's like you didn't really need either of those things. But you used to run like a couple of delays and a couple of reverbs, right? Do you still have like situational ones where you have like one pedal that's like, you know, say on the 8th note or like beat delay, and it's on more like textural delay, or
the Boss DD7, you know, everyone loves that. It's I use that just for like normal delay. Then I think I have like a Keeley Cavern, which has like a delay switch, and I actually use that just as a noisemaker. So like I turn down the time all the way and I turn the feedback all the way up. So then when you click on it, it basically like gives you this stab of like, woo, like this like really crazy noisemaker thing, which I sometimes use to good effect. I don't think anything in the set, any stuff in the new set we really use noise for, but anyway, sometimes fun. It's a goofy thing.
Are you both constantly in the pursuit of tone, or are you happy with your tone, like the actual tone of your instruments?
I was for a long time hunting for bass tone. And even after, like, you know, I'm singing the Sansamps praises, I still had to like sort of like fiddle with it to get it just right. But I'm pretty happy where I'm at now. There's still some like, I would like a little bit like grungier, real gritty, like something like maybe from like a dark glass pedal, just some real like distorted bass tones. But for what I'm playing in a mix, and when you start thinking about the mix versus like, you know, bedroom playing, when you're sitting there listening to it, and you're like, oh, this sounds so good, and then you bring it to the party and you realize you can't hear the bass at all. You're like, oh, well, I've clearly done something wrong. I'm pretty happy with my tone now, how it sits in like a live mix or in a recorded mix. And it's tough because then when I sit and play the bass by myself, I'm like, this doesn't sound right. And then like, oh, when you put the rest of the instruments in, this is exactly where it needs to be. So I'm pretty happy with it now, but I could see myself falling back into wanting more and more and different and better. And I just want to sound like Rage Against the Machine half the time.
I do really like my tone. Like it works. I'm like, as sort of mentioned with the pedal like talk, like I've sort of like become like like it's a tool. Like you bring it to the gig, like you just do it to like play your songs. Like it's a little like I've gotten a little less like, you know, like intense about it. The other thing is that all this like tone that I'm doing, I really do like it. I got this like wee little amp. It's nice and light. That's always good. A light amp.
So you're always using your own amp then, yeah?
I mean, like unless, you know, if there's a backline at the gig, I have no like I'm not like too set on that. But like I'm always happy to bring my like little amp. It just has to be clean, basically. Like a lot of the stuff we do is pretty clean.
Yeah. Okay.
But like tone to me also, like for example, when we're recording albums and stuff like that, nothing I really do like in a live setting with tone really makes it across to the final record. I pretty much start from the ground up. Like I do a lot of like DI guitars for like recording the album. Like, and then in that situation, I just sort of am more meticulous with layering. Like often I think you can get away with a lot less gain when you're doing like album recording and stuff.
I'm always very like concerned about like when you plug like a guitar like DI that like it sounds so crappy when there's nothing, like no amp presets put into it, and I'm like, I can't imagine this sounding good, but it's the same principle as plugging it into an actual amp, right? Yeah. So it actually turns out good.
And the other thing, sort of what Clinton was talking about with like it's like I think context matters. Like, you know, using DI, like you're right, like even like DI, like through a DI amp, like there's really great amp simulators out there. Like, you know, you plug DI guitar in to record, and the amp simulators sound pretty good. I mean, do they sound as good as like, you know, a fantastic old Fender amp? Probably not. Yeah. But I find that everything's getting so EQ'd and cut up anyway, and like compressed. And with the style of music we make, like this is just for a rhythm guitar that's going to be just on the bottom floor. You're hardly going to hear it. So I've taken a real trend towards like DI guitar work for like making albums, and then, you know, I just bring my little setup for gigs and stuff.
Your laptop's also good though, because in Logic you can do really good monitoring. So you can actually build the pedal setup and the amps and the cab sims that he's running through, and then be able to play it and hear it back in real time.
Yeah,
Studio monitors, which helps a lot to be able to actually play like the amp sag and the different qualities of the amp sim that you're playing through.
Yeah.
My computer isn't very good at that, so there's a pretty noticeable bit of latency when I
Oh,
focus
yeah.
notes versus when I
That
hear
sucks.
it.
Yeah.
Which then sucks because then you either have to play it just DI in and it sounds like crap, or you have to play it with latency, which also sounds like crap.
That'd be hard to do. I think I would pick the non-latency option.
Yeah, exactly. So that's what I do too.
Yeah,
and then,
for
just,
sure.
then I just play usually play like a section. Then I'll then I'll turn everything on, listen back, see if I played it right, and that's a little bit more of my workflow. So you don't get to play to the sound of to your tone quite as much. But I still also use DI guitar because I honestly just can't be bothered to mic up an amp. I'm so lazy.
I'm gonna ask some probably more lyrical questions now. So break the targets. I guess
That's the Nova Scotia one. That's the
exactly.
One that,
Let's say everyone I looked up to in high school is doing time in Nova Scotia prison. Is there any truth to that?
No, it's that was a funny. That's actually those lyrics. That was part of a song that I did this silly little project during the pandemic where we released a song every week, or Anyway,
So how many songs did you release?
we did it for 9 weeks. No, wait, that doesn't make sense. We did it for 19 weeks.
Whoa.
No, that doesn't. Yes, I think it was 19 because it wasn't 20. So anyway, we did. I know it
almost
wasn't
20, so close.
Yeah.
It was one more song.
and that was just a project. Like it was like a lot of like odds and ends laying around. Like it wasn't like, oh, we wrote and recorded something every week. It was just like
some of them were B-sides or left on the cutting room floor
Yeah.
type stuff.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, Break the Targets is one of those, and that turned out really great. I love it's so vibey. But anyway, that was I think the real like sort of lyrical contents of that song is about the people you look up to in high school. You just becoming disillusioned as you get older. Like people seem so cool and like untouchable when you're younger, and maybe you look up to them, but you grow up and like everyone's just kind of like everyone's doing their own thing and fighting their own battle. And yeah, I don't know. That was kind of, I think, what informed that very silly line. I think I wanted to just do something zany with the Nova Scotia prison thing. So.
Was there anything about Nova Scotia? Was there any kind of like, is there any curiosity about Nova Scotia, or is it just kind of like, it just had a good sound to it?
Nova Scotia does have something to do with it. One of these people who I looked up into in high school, I think went to university in Nova Scotia after, and then I have no idea where he is. I'm sure he's doing excellently. I don't think he's in a Nova Scotia prison, but so I think that's where that came from.
There's another like theme in that song, but you're kind of saying it's a kind of a throwaway song, so maybe I'm looking too deeply into this.
Well, no, I'd be happy.
There's a theme of like accepting defeat before even trying. The lines, I'm not expecting success, I don't mind that it's not my time. It's kind of like
totally. I think that's actually a great lyric to bring up because while it is like the song was just kind of like like a quick one, I think that still informs pretty much everything I write. The kind of not I wouldn't use the word like imposter syndrome, although everyone also feels imposter syndrome. Just kind of this this like never ending like uphill battle, accepting defeat, like you said, accepting defeat, and sort of like just like the cards feeling stacked against you in regards to like I have a very wonderful life. I'm tremendously lucky, but just like thinking about trying to create arts, trying to get like people to like listen to your art and stuff like that. It can be like a challenging thing to get people to engage, and like sometimes it just like it feels like like a lot of competition and everything like that. So me just like I can have a very defeatist attitude, and I can be very pessimistic when I want to. So I think that's kind of where that's coming from.
I guess I'll almost skip around here a little bit just to maintain that theme. Was except for me, there's like an anxiety about not being remembered.
Yes. Yes, exactly.
Okay. And it's so yeah, the internet being filled with so much content that like it's basically like a wash. I'll just read the lyrics out that stuck out. Was that nothing lasts forever on the internet. Everything is forgotten in a sea of endless content, and no one will remember what I did except for me. You're sort of making things for yourself, and it's kind of like it. You can throw it out there, but there's just so much stuff out there that it's not going to really matter.
Totally. Yes. Actually, and I do really like that lyric about nothing lasts forever on the internet because, first of all, it's just a fun inversion on like, I remember my parents always telling me like growing up being like, oh, careful, whatever you post on the internet is there forever. And like now it just feels like nothing could be farther from the truth. I mean, it is there forever, like data is it, but like it's just, everything. And
maybe like only the incriminating things are going to last forever and everything else.
The kids can make memes of it.
Yeah. So, Yeah, that's actually another. Yeah, that song is totally about. Like I always like whenever I get down about it's challenging with like trying to like share like what you're passionate about, but like I always say like I love this, like I love making music like more than anything. So like of course I'm gonna keep doing this. Like this is like this makes me so happy and like brings me like a level of fulfillment that like I couldn't even imagine. But at the same time, it can be very disheartening. You have good days and bad days of like spending a lot of time on something you're really passionate about, and then it just kind of comes and goes, and then it's just
Yeah, like I mean, because you can create a lot of stuff and it can actually be the best thing in the world, but if no one hears it, is it actually going to be considered the best thing in the world? It's like you're kind of just like yelling into the abyss.
Exactly. And I have made my peace with that. Like, when I revisit old records, I shamelessly go back and listen to the old records that I made, and I do love them. Like, I'm so thankful, and I have to keep that in perspective when I'm getting all in my head about like, oh, well, no one cares. And honestly, it's okay if no one cares, because I care and I love this stuff that I'm making, and I love to go back to it. So I think I have to keep reminding myself that.
And also you're also creating like every song, every album that you record is like a time capsule.
Yes. Yes. That is so, oh my God. Yeah. Kevin, you're on the ball. Yeah, that is.
This is a conversation Peter and I have had many a time.
Love revisiting. Yes, it is totally. It captures what you're thinking about. Like I can sometimes place like, when did I write this? Like, yeah. So yeah.
Yeah. So really like that in itself is beneficial, and it can actually extend not your actual life, but your perspective on how long your life is. If you repeat doing the same thing over and over again, your life feels very short. But if you're always doing something different, even like making new music, you go back to your old music, you can realize, holy geez, that was a long time ago when I made that.
Totally. I feel yes. Yeah, hit the nail on the head there.
Well, thank you. So anyway, I'm gonna be a little bit disorganized here, but so in the song "Optical Illusion," election day, time to give up any hope of change. Is this a cynicism about the democratic process, or is it is there anything deeper? Like what were you thinking about that?
Basically cynicism of the entire democratic process. This was, I don't know when I wrote this, but like everything's just like, I remember like, Bernie Sanders, like just like folding or whatever. And like, just stuff like that. And like, it's very frustrating. There's, I think, a real like theme of like powerlessness in terms of like policy and stuff like that. Once again, I say this with there's a caveat there that like I am insanely privileged and I have more power than like anyone. But there is like a real theme of like powerlessness, and then like just like look outside, like there is just like these cruel, evil people are running the world, and like just like it's all just about like what can make a little more money. So anyway, that's not to dive down that rabbit hole, but that's totally Optical Illusion is about that. And actually the new record is almost exclusively about that same feeling of powerlessness. So
I was given every choice, and I made every bad decision. I guess the idea is like the privilege of having every choice and then still fucking it up.
Exactly. Yep. That's exactly it. That's another underlying themes of regret and like fumbling the bag, being like handed like a really, really fortunate life, relatively speaking, and just like totally just beat a jackass with it. So yeah, that's that.
At the end of that song, there was like a sound clip. I was like trying to make it out, the relationship between ourselves and the internet. I didn't quite hear the whole thing, but it was something alluding to that.
Yeah, that was a like a podcast or a vlog by a leftist podcaster that I really like. And yeah, I don't even remember the context in it. I was hunting for samples. I was just like getting like found sounds and stuff like that. But I was watching that, and that was all about like how what does he say is like the way like it changes the way like, but not between our relationships with each other, but the relationship between the internet and ourselves.
Yeah,
which I think is becoming more and more prevalent than ever with isolation, and then just like like
parasocial relationships with like internet figures.
Yeah, and like I just like live on my phone, right? Like how just. Yeah, I thought it was just a really resonant quote, and I feel silly that I don't remember the whole thing now, but I remember just being like, wow, like, yeah, that is totally, it's kind of thematically fit with the song, I think.
It was like the ideas of our relationships with ourselves, that the internet is sort of like changing our internal monologues and how we even see ourselves? Is that kind of like what they were getting at?
Yeah, I think that's definitely like a big aspect of it, and like it's like I think the vlog was some pretty heady stuff. Like I'm definitely not smart enough to like process all of it, but yeah, there's definitely a lot of like that element there of how we're just I think yeah. Anyway.
Okay, so yeah, so also like except for me spending years of my life on something that won't see the light of day, I imagine that's kind of like maybe working on songs that aren't finished or even songs that are finished, but by light of day, like no one's gonna even notice it. Or is there anything?
Yeah, it was mostly about like no one's kind of like back to that like sort of theme of like like when you make something like this, like who cares is like sort of like the devil on your shoulder or whatever, like saying like why are you doing this? Like who's gonna care? And just like that's sort of putting to words that like nasty feeling of like, well, what's the point of making art? What's the point of like pursuing your passions? Which I try not to listen to that devil on my shoulder. So, yeah.
But you kind of answer the question with the lyric, they love you for all your accomplishments. That's the reason why you're doing it. Is that kind of I'm kind of a bit like a psychiatry.
No. Although I'll drop a little bit of tea here. Do you know what that lyric's about? I'll start a little drama here or whatever. It's not bad. It's so that lyric, no one will remember what you did except for me. They'll love you for all your accomplishments, and then nothing lasts forever on the internet. Yeah. That lyric is about Jesse Lacey, who was the singer of the band Brand New.
Yeah, I know what happened with him. Yes.
Yeah, and so that was Brand New was my favorite band ever, and then all that nasty stuff happened. Yeah. And then I think I wrote that around the time where like because nothing lasts forever on the internet. People like were just sort of like forgetting that it happened and like, oh, like, like I'm down. And obviously it's different for everyone. Like you could still listen to Brand New. But I think at that time I really felt like, what is like I kind of had like a what's the point moment of like, like why do I stick to my guns? Why does it matter? Why does anything matter? I got,
Well, and particularly I do recall like the many conversations we had during this time as well. And like music is one of those spaces that was really strong about like, not allowing, abusers to continue to come to shows and to try and create safe spaces for people and to like, to make going to shows and being around musicians and particularly, like in the punk indie music sphere were more on top of it than any other like part of culture that I had awareness of. Yeah. And so to see people really cared until it was a band that they really liked and all of a sudden they were quiet on the issue or no, it's okay to listen to them.
Yeah. It's like that's
like can you separate art from artist? That's a much bigger conversation.
Yeah. Like, it's a personal.
I think I'm too stupid to wax poetic on, but I think personally, I don't listen to Brand New anymore because I can't separate Jesse Lacey from the lyrics that are being sang.
Yeah.
And thus, I can't separate the art from the artist because he's singing and it seems like he's singing about himself, and it now recontextualizes some of the things that he's saying in a way that makes me feel really gross to hear it, and I don't want to support artists who.
Here's an interesting idea. You say support. What happens if you steal the music and you don't actually like provide any financial backing to them? You know what I mean?
I got no problem with that.
Yeah, I'd say that's fine. I think and once again, that's why I always try to add the addendum that it's personal. That please go. You could go steal Brand New's music. Don't pay for Brand New's music. Whatever. Yeah. I mean, I don't agree with it.
Who am I to tell anyone else what to do? I'm trying to hold myself to whatever qualities that I want to hold on to myself.
Yeah. There was a band.
Steal your music, kids.
There was I don't know if people know this band. They're not that well known. Band called Jank.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
same.
Yeah, and it was like I'm like I really like their music and it's like. But I never paid for any of the music, so I'm like, I don't know. Anyway, I don't listen to it often, but I like it'll appear on like some playlist or something. But anyway, yeah.
Yeah, and I also think there's a difference between like if I'm just sitting around listening to music for enjoyment, I veer away from bands that I know have been canceled. But if I know that I'm trying to do a thing professionally, where I'm sitting down and producing music. I feel like it would also be silly not to reference bands that were really famous. So if I wanted something that sounded like Brand New, I should go back and listen to their stuff for reference tracks.
Yeah, okay.
So it's, and I would never tell someone not to do that because if that's the sound you're going for, and maybe you want to be the band that is existing in that musical space that isn't canceled. Well, where are you going to get your reference from? you have to just do it all by memory. Like, I think there's a difference between like listening for a reason versus like just supporting because you don't care, or you listen to their stuff all the time because you really like them and you're not, you know,
Yeah. Okay.
whatever's happening, you know, be damned sort of thing. So those are different in my mind.
Yeah.
There was a lyric that sort of stuck out to me, and I may be misinterpreting it. Nothing is as fun as it used to be, and I kind of thought of it about the idea of like getting older and sort of the highs aren't as high as they used to be, and like, was that kind of what you're going for? Is there
Yes.
okay?
Exactly. Yeah, it's just about, I think, especially back then, when I was writing that record, I still sometimes am like this. I had a real complex about getting older. I was in that kind of awkward post-university period where, you know, you kind of can come from like, you know, university or college and like, you know, you're having a raging time and like going to all the big shows and stuff. And then like there's kind of, you know, there can kind of be a vacuum of that, like really those high highs afterwards. And I think I was just wallowing and, you know, thinking about, like nothing, like everything used to be so much fun and so funny. And then like, it was always like this. I'm just the one who changed. And so, just sort of assessing and reflecting on that, I guess.
Okay.
So.
Cool. And I got to ask about the end of the song. It's kind of like a hardcore breakdown. Is there double bass drum pedal in that?
Yes.
Okay.
with the help of a computer. But that was really fun to do. I forgot about that. That's so.
What was the inspiration to end the song with that kind of like? Did you like have like a chord progression? You're like, it seems a bit flat, and then just put a double bass drum pedal in, or like, what was?
Actually, this is what I'm about to say is catastrophically stupid. I'm a big fan of the group Death Grips.
Okay,
and so that ending was actually like my homage to the ending of a Death Grip song, which pretty much has that same vibe of like this really like nasty whatever drum thing. And I listened to it and I'm like, this sounds okay. And also it sounds a little too much like Death Grips. So I said, well, why don't I go back in with like that like chugging like da 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 guitar and add some like
metalcore.
And that was tremendously fun. I that's once again I will sing the praises of recording stuff at home because it allows you like to like just say, well, what if I do something stupid like this? And,
so. There's definitely like a lot less pressure when you're doing it on your own rather than
Well, especially because you can always just like turn that track off or delete it later. But you like if you're sitting there with all the stuff in your hands, like why not like click on that pedal and see how it sounds, or play a different riff. And so I agree with the like recording at home. You get to try silly stuff, and sometimes silly stuff becomes really cool and stays in the song.
Yeah. Is are the songs are they recorded on a click?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so the deluxe version of it has electronic versions. So was that like you had like the whole song like clicked out and you just like deleted things and added things in, or is that like a whole re-recording of stuff?
It's kind of backwards actually. So here's part of Clinton was sort of mentioning how I was really, when I was first starting to work on the record, I was complaining about, I don't know what kind of guitar sound I want. I don't know if I want this or that. And it's because the record started as the electronic version. I was so convinced that I said, okay, it was our second LP. So I said, for LP2, we are going to just completely 180. No more indie rock, no more real drum. I just really wanted to make an ambient electronic record, which is so insane to think about in retrospect.
When you have a full band, it's kind of,
it was, and I think maybe, anyway, but I was like, oh no, like it's going to be ambient electronic, and we'll make it work. And I was whack. I can't believe I thought that. And so of course I reached some point where I'm like, oh my God, this isn't going to work. Like this is insane. So that's when I pivoted and made what you hear today as Reducer, like the normal version. So like real drums and everything like that. But then I had all these like mostly finished electronic versions just sitting around collecting dust.
Okay.
And I said, well, like give them a little polish and throw them on a deluxe thing, just as like, here's where these things started. So that was kind of the impetus for that.
So were those electronic versions going to be the original versions off like on first, like your first idea was to do that? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
With vocals. Yeah. But then that's when I realized that the reason that so much electronic music, I think, doesn't have vocals in it is because it's not about the vocal delivery. It's more about the vibe and the atmosphere. And then I realized I was just trying to like, it was like trying to like a square peg into a round hole or something like that, to use that metaphor, because like it just didn't work. Like the vocals that I write are suited to like indie rock, pop punk chord progressions. They are not suited to this ambient electronic thing. They just didn't work. So I said, okay, at that point I said, okay, this stupid idea has gone on long enough. Let's just make a normal sounding indie record. So
Producer normal sounding. That's like crazy harsh noise.
Producer Taylor's version.
She does a whole version of the album. All right, cool. Well, we have hit the hour and 1 minute mark, and I've gotten through all the questions. Well, thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you for having us. This has been really
This is
fun.
really fun. Yeah.
I have like a stupid idea. I have no idea if this is going to work or not. I'm trying to think about like, like how like they do promos for like the holiday season and say like happy holidays.
Yeah.
You want to do like hello, we're Peter and Clinton from Future Free.
Yeah.
Want to wish you happy holidays this season or something. I don't know.
Okay. Do you want me? And then like, how would I say like happy holidays? And you say and stay safe out there. I don't know.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, I have no idea if you're going to use it, but I'm just like, I was just thinking about it today. Yeah, but
It's like, hi, this is Peter and Clinton from the band Futura Free.
Hi.
We wanted to wish you the warmest wishes this holiday season.
And stay safe out there.
Nice.
And then you have the jingle bell, like ching,
Yeah.
ching, ching.
and there's a Christmas tree in the background too. Right?
Feels like an awkward like SNL kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
thing. Yeah.